finally we have some Flyers action as they take on the New York Islanders. Only this time, we got the rookie showcase to look forward to. So where do I start? What a game. What a game. It was actually one of the better rookie games that I have seen. I mean, you know, it was an up and down match, but there was a good amount of talent on both sides. The New York Islanders pool is also deep. You know, you have players like Wahlstrom and Noah Dobson in there. Bellows is in there, you know, a returning player, more physical player, but against young players always seems to be more effective. But, you know, overall, we had a lot to be excited about from the Flyers end. You had the top line to be featured of Frost, Farabee, and Ratcliffe, which was clearly at times dominant in this game, but did not come to the scoring sheet, you know, the way that I think the team was hoping. Overall, though, the Flyers rookies had a pretty good game. Ups and downs, you know, but the weaknesses throughout the lineup kind of showed. The disorganization showed. You know, at the end of the day, you know, they lost a W, which was somewhat of a meaningless game, but this is really more of a point of pride for these kids, you know, as a young group. You know, you don't want to be the one that loses, right? Where, you know, you want to be the year that wins. You want to be the year that dominates, to, you know, to show everybody that this crop of players led by this top line, you know, got the job done. And quite frankly, tonight they did not, but you know, there were a lot of good things to take away. I mean, first and foremost, let's give, you know, recognition to Sandstrom. He only played half the game, but wow, he looked good, right? I mean, right off the bat, that goalie, he can move. I already knew that about him, right? His agility, his athleticism is definitely there. He's already been playing against pros. He's had some really good performances in the past. You know, somewhat of a down year last year, but then, you know, kind of progressed better as the season went on, and then, you know, I'm really excited to see what he can do with the Phantoms, for instance. I know he's going to start in the ECHL, but, you know, we got a taste of what he can do against young, talented players. I suspect that as the season rolls on, he'll probably do that to AHL players. The Flyers right now are pretty deep at the AHL level. Bringing in J.S. Berube and already having Alex Lyon, that is some serious competition for a guy like Sandstrom, but he is, in my opinion, more athletic than both of them. So as far as slight edge athleticism, they have the experience and the technical game down. But Sandstrom looked really good tonight, so I got to give him, you know, hats off. They were up 3-0, and then once it got pulled, you know, Ustimenko gave up that quick goal and, you know, a couple other goals. Not best performance, but he's coming in cold. You know, what do you really expect the kid to do? He actually finished pretty strong and, you know, held his own. And at a point where he probably could have broke and the Flyers maybe could have lost that game in regulation, he stood tall because the Flyers kind of broke down as the game went on. It wasn't really the performance that we all were looking for to, you know, to a certain degree as far as a whole, as a unit. Now, there are some definitely standout stars, and I will talk about that for sure. But overall, like as a team game, you know, they had some spurts of domination, which just shows their skill level. But again, if you can't do it consistently and you kind of have these breakdowns or your goaltender has to bail you out or giving away all these breakaways, you know, it's just not efficient hockey. It's a rookie game, so take it for what it is. It's not the end of the world in any sense. You know, it really is just the crop of players. What was really interesting to see, let's start off at the back end. I mean, Phil Myers, for instance, just, yeah, obviously he's on another level than the majority of these guys. Talent-wise, yeah, there's some guys that are there with him, but physically, just skating, you know, he looked like the best player in the game. So let's be honest. But we can assume that, right? He had 20 games already last year. Surprising he didn't even have more, right? We could have used him in the NHL level, but being patient with him is definitely the right step to go. But you can see he's just kind of hit his stride right now. I'd be very shocked if he starts off in the AHL, but you know, it could happen based off of just like a numbers game for him. But you know, his competition is Haig, Morin, you know, Braun. I don't know. He doesn't really have that much competition, at least on a two-way game. You know, it's kind of his for the taking. I know people kind of scoff at this, but I see his game complementing somebody like Shane Gosper for sure. A run and gun team. You know, if they play the third pairing at even strength, that's fine. Because they'll score on people, and that'll be great because the Flyers need to score consistently. So outside of that, Myers looked great. Zamula had some great puck possession plays, really quick passes. He really is progressing really nicely. I mean, last year he was already super poised. You know, I wasn't surprised when he got the LC. I was saying, you know, sign him up, you know, lock him down immediately. How could you not? But the kid's just poised. It's really interesting to see how they've managed to find another big defenseman that got passed over that has, a two-way game with size and the brain to go with it and the skating to go with it. It's great. It's really great to see that with Zamula. He's got some things to work on still. He's really scrawny, obviously, but that's going to come with age. I'd like to see his shot improve. He's really big. That's kind of the harder part to do as a defenseman, to shoot from that far out, to not get blocked from the point. But he did a really good job passing, so I think it's there. The decision-making is there, and if the decision-making is there, then I think the shot selection will be there. It's really important for a defenseman, especially who wants to make the NHL. Can't take risky shots unless maybe you have the skill to make up for it. Somebody like Gosper will dive across the ice, but 90% of players can't really get away with that stuff. But Zamula looked really good. Millman had some really strong shifts. He's a great skater. I do see a little Travis Sanheim in him. Not the same offensive ability, but I don't know, just the ability to get up and down the ice. Something about it just reminds me of him. I did hear that comparison before. It's interesting. I don't see the same offensive game, but he seems like an effective player. I can understand why the Flyers are excited about him, and I expect to probably see him progress and maybe shock some people. Maybe he'll develop a more offensive game, and then I'll be eating my words, and this kid will be even better than I anticipate. But so far, Millman looked good. Wiley, I thought he looked good at times. I didn't think he was that assertive, but he also looked pretty calm. I saw him to make some pretty good passes. Kept things simple. Again, a lot of these guys were training camp invites, so it's not. I'm not expecting that much for them. They were okay. We had some good performances and down performances, but not really the guys that is a huge focus in this game. But they did an admirable job, I think, for a disorganized game. The Flyers kind of went up and down in that game, but the defense held up, at least in overtime, until a shootout, right, where they're no longer a factor. At least they held their own, and that's good to see. They weren't playing a bad team, so that's something for people to remember. This is also a talented young group. So losing 4-4 in a shootout is really not the end of the world. It's really a game that's separated based off of talent. The Flyers, I would say, have the edge, but again, it's about execution too. It's not just talent. It's attention to detail, it's experience, and it's also the way that the group works together. And a lot of changes in this Flyers org. Top line is brand new to the AHL, so it's interesting because they didn't, while they had times of domination, they didn't dominate, right? So let's get to that. Let's get to the forwards, because the forwards were really what was exciting about this game overall. Just seeing that top line of Frost, Ratcliffe, and Farabee. It was great to see. They have a really nice, interesting combination, right? You have Ratcliffe is huge, got the strength and the power, and he was really aggressive early in this game. Trailed away a little bit towards the end of the game, but overall, an aggressive performance from him. I liked what I saw. I'd like to see a little more emphasis on shooting. He's a good shooter. So let's get there. Again, this is why I left him off my list to make the team out of camp. Again, if you see him in person, in the locker room, he's a very imposing young man. Like, his deep voice, he's got the build. Honestly, the sky is the limit for this kid. It's going to be fascinating to see what he turns into, just because of his, overall physique and growth rate, and then now his skill set to go along with it as he develops. I really liked what I saw, but I'd like to see more consistent throughout the whole game. Seemed like he kind of wore down a little bit as the game went on, but still, solid performance. I anticipate he'll start in the AHL for sure. Frost, I thought Frost had a very good performance at times, and at other times he was kind of invisible. I liked some of the defensive plays he made. I liked some of the simple passes he made. He did a lot of nice setups, still creating those opportunities. But a player of that skill set, I just want to see some more aggressiveness from him. I don't see that performance getting him onto the Flyers. I would think he would probably agree with that. It's just one game, not the end of the world, right? It's a rookie game. He's got training camp and all this stuff to work through. But if that's going to be his type of performance, he will not be making the Flyers. That doesn't mean he won't make it as the season progresses. He might make it 2 weeks in, a month in, maybe first injury. Maybe he makes it through training camp and his play improves. But he has to be more consistent on a regular basis, because Frost is not going to play in the NHL unless he's playing on the power play, in my opinion. They're not going to bring him up to just play even strength the entire time. You're not going to have him play 10 minutes a night. It's just not going to happen. And he's probably not going to play on your PK to start in the NHL. But AHL could definitely happen, but NHL, probably not. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. So let's get to, in my opinion, the most exciting player of the game from that line, and I think that's Joel Farabee. And the reason I say that is because every single shift, Farabee was effective. Now, Farabee's weaknesses are his conditioning, in my opinion. He needs to add some muscle would be the wrong term for it. It would be more... I guess, a recovery. From shift to shift, I want him to make the end of the game feel like the beginning of the game. He's close, do not get me wrong. He's not very far away from conditioning, but I just wanted to make sure he hits that next level. I think he has a serious chance to make the Flyers out of camp. I know a lot of people, didn't see that. I've been talking about this for a while already. His game is there. His brain, his ability to be in the right place at the right time. He is responsible defensively. He can shoot. He can make plays. You could see the way he played with Frost. He's just a perfect complementary player. So if you put him with a guy maybe like Nolan Patrick, a guy like Sean Couturier potentially, I don't know, Kevin Hayes, doesn't matter. One of those centers, he could be really effective with them immediately. I think he can just keep the pace up. He might not make it out of camp. That's fine, but I would say he's the top of the stack for, the younger guys. Just overall, I think he had a pretty solid performance. He had a post there at the end, could have won the game. But if you really pay attention to the details on how he played, he kind of stuck out every single shift. And that's the stuff. That's what I mean with Frost. It needs to be consistent. That every shift you need to be an impact. Frost's ceiling is still very high. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying Farabee is a better player. All I'm saying is that currently where the game is, Frost is, in my opinion, a half step behind where Farabee is. But again, it's really early, but I've been tracking this for a while. And I think Frost also has the tougher role, right? He's got to play center. If he doesn't play center in the NHL, it could be a different factor for him. But again, my opinion is that they will try him at center first, because if you have the opportunity to convert him to center, at least teach him the defensive game, why wouldn't you do that at the AHL level? Unless he hops onto your power play 2 unit. So if Frost is a mainstay on power play 2 at the NHL level, then you get a whole different story, because you're talking about actually getting some ice time and producing at the NHL level. But they'll be more patient with him, because I believe that they will continue working him at center. Let's get to the rest of the lineup. I'm not going to go through everybody, but I'm just going to go through kind of the highlights. German Rubtsov, I would say, is a big highlight. Obviously, he had 2 goals. Not surprising to me. Most people know me. I've been talking about Rubtsov for about 3 years. I talked to Bill Meltzer about it actually the other day. People are looking at his numbers, but you really have to look at what he did when he won that championship. He was playing a third-line role because he was asked to. He was also the youngest person on that juniors squad that won those championships. He was the youngest person in the top 9 that was producing, for sure. And you can look at those numbers. He was a year younger than everybody else. This kid is not a fluke. I am very excited about him. I think he also has a chance to make the team out of camp. I would actually venture a guess that it'd be either him or Farabee if a kid makes it. Vorobiev obviously has a chance too. I don't know if I consider him as much a kid as the other ones, just because he's really getting there. He already had his taste. He should have made it last year. Nobody expected him to be sent down after the performance he had at preseason. So with him, I just want to be a little more... I'm a little more hesitant, because I think that they'll demand for him to kind of excel if they're going to give him another chance. And I think potential is there for him to do that this season, especially with the caliber of players. But Vorobiev will probably get a little bit of backseat, is my guess, unless he comes in a training camp, at least mimicking the performance he had the year before, which he did not do during the season. But German Rubtsov, if you watch him, he's just always in the right place at the right time. Just almost always, at least at the lower levels, he is just never out of place. That's the type of guy that you could throw in the bottom 6 of the NHL level. The only problem is you want him to get ice time, because you saw he scored 2 goals tonight. The kid could be very effective. He could be a player that could end up playing with somebody like Sean Couturier, right? We talk about Lindblom, complimentary player that plays a 2-way game. We have a few of them now, and I would put German Rubtsov in that category. And he also has the potential to play center at the NHL level. So this is really interesting stuff. Like maybe somebody like Scott Law ends up moving to wing, and German Rubtsov takes a center position. I really like Rubtsov. He's definitely one of my favorite prospects within the system. I suspect his English is better than he at least tells the media. But that's okay. I understand not wanting to talk to the media, on a second language. It would suck. I wouldn't want to do that. But overall, he just looked really good, and I could see him communicating with his team members. He ran that line tonight, and it was great. That line with LeBerge. Maxim Shusko also had a pretty decent game. The two of them decent. They had their ups or downs. LeBerge, I'm excited about him, but he's got to have better performance than what he did tonight. He's got a great shot. He needs to be more aggressive to get to the open areas to shoot. That's his bet, in my opinion. If he wants to make the pro level, he needs to start remembering that he can score goals. And that's what he needs to do. I didn't see that from him tonight, so AHL bound, most likely anyway, for the both of them. But, they're both NHL caliber prospects. Decent games for both of them. Not great, but not bad either. David Kasha had a sweet, sweet goal. If he wasn't so undersized, he would be considered higher echelon prospect. I mean, the kid is definitely some serious skills. He's got the brain to go with it, the attitude to go with it. If he wasn't so small, I suspect that he would probably have a similar career to his brother. We'll see what happens. I do suspect he'll start in the AHL this year, but he's going to be one of their top 6 guys, in my opinion, eventually by the end of the season. And he could sniff the NHL. Not this year, in my opinion. Maybe the next year. Maybe not with the Flyers in general. But he does seem like a player who will progress into that NHL player, or at least be successful overseas. He just seems like a guy who's poised to create chances and play a relatively consistent game and compete hard. There's just so much to like about him that I see him as a pro. I see him developing to be a pro athlete, 100%. So just to what degree, I'm not sure yet, but I really liked him, and I loved the goal that he scored tonight. And actually give a shout-out to Sean Comrie for scoring a goal. Beautiful goal, and then he had a couple more opportunities. Obviously, I don't know that much about Comrie, right? He's an invite, but it's always nice to see. It doesn't mean he's going to make the team, but he might stick out somewhere else, at another camp. Not always an opportunity to get signed by the Flyers. It could be an opportunity to get signed by somebody else. Mika Sear had a couple good shifts that I saw within their 4th line role, so a little tougher for him to get minutes. So overall, there was a lot to take away from this game that was really good. The Flyers made it an interesting game. They made me be excited about the season without the season even starting. I like that they do the games in Lehigh Valley. It stinks for me here in Philly. But, for people in Lehigh Valley, it's awesome, and I love that they're kind of blowing that out. Why not bring all the talent there, bring the TV, the national coverage, or at least for me in Philadelphia, it was on NBC, CSN, right? So Comcast is kind of televising. I like that it's getting bigger. These kids are talented. Why not take advantage of it? Why not highlight Lehigh Valley fandoms, grow the brand a little bit? So I like that they did that. It was a really interesting game overall, and I think it's a nice taste of what's to come. I wouldn't put too much stock into all of this. Again, I'm just giving my opinions for one game. Frost could come out, next game and just light the world on fire, and I eat my words, right? And it doesn't matter. Frost, I think, is still trending up, and I think if he, doesn't make the team out of camp, you'll see probably this moment where it kind of clicks for him during the season, and his production will just go up until the point where everybody's going to be screaming to call him up if he hasn't made it up yet. Again, Farabee, I see more as like that Simone Gagne guy. He doesn't need to be bigger. He doesn't play the middle of the ice, even if Frost doesn't. They both don't really need to be that big, but they do need to be in the right place at the right time consistently. They need to not get worn down as the season goes on. These are all key elements. So the one thing I would say is if a kid has a chance to make the Flyers, you will see him be tested. You will see him be tested. They will give him weird roles. They'll put him on the PK. They'll put him on the power play. They'll put him at the top line. They'll put him in the 3rd line. They'll experiment with them considerably, and that means they're trying to find out where they're ready and where they're not. What are their weak points? They want to find out. If they go up against somebody bigger and stronger, will they disappear in the game? Things like that will happen. Think back to the rookie game last year where the Flyers showed up with or actually it wasn't rookie, in preseason game, the Flyers showed up with 0 veteran talent in that first preseason game against the Islanders, who's had kind of a normal NHL, AHL lineup and just smashed those kids, sent them all home packing. I was talking to Meltzer about that as well. This is, they were set up for that. I mean, it's quite obvious that they were set up to fail, to remind them how far they are away from pro. I don't think these rookies are that far away. And I don't think we're that far away from seeing a lot of these guys be effective at the pro level. And we have a lot to be excited about. Depth wins championships. Tonight we got a preview of it.